The dining room looked like something from a lifestyle magazine. Golden light spilled from the chandelier Cedric bought for their 20th anniversary, warming the deep cherry wood of the table and dancing across the rim of delicate china. The roast was perfectly browned, the vegetables tender, the wine breathing in cut crystal glasses. There was a soft hum of conversation, pleasant, practiced, polite. It should have been perfect. Bessie Holloway sat at the foot of the table in her pale blue blouse and pearl earrings, proud of the meal she'd prepared. She smiled as Judd complimented the roast, her son's voice warm and boyish even at 43. Next to him sat Lilia, 28, striking with icy green eyes and hair twisted tightly into a bun that looked more sculpted than styled. She wore a pale silk dress and a look of quiet superiority, like someone attending a dinner she had already won. Still, Bessie tried. She always did. She laughed at the right moments, passed the bread basket with grace, offered seconds, even when her heart felt heavy. Cedric, her husband of 43 years, sat at the head of the table as he always had, slicing his meat in silence. He hadn't looked at her once, and somehow that small absence of a gaze hurt more than any raised voice ever could. Lilia reached for her wine glass, her fingers trailing slowly across its stem. Her other hand rested on her abdomen flat, not yet showing, but the way she touched it, the way she made sure everyone saw, Bessie noticed. And when Lilia caught her looking, she smiled. Not kindly, not gently, but with something else behind her eyes. Triumph. Then she stood up, slowly, gracefully, like a dancer gliding to center stage. She stepped behind Judd's chair, her heels clicking softly against the polished floor. Then she leaned down, just a whisper, just for Bessie. "I'm pregnant with your husband's baby, you tacky old woman." It didn't even sound like a threat. It sounded like victory. The air went cold. The chandelier, once warm and glowing, now seemed to cast a sterile light on everything. Time fractured. Bessie felt her heart seize, her breath falter, but her face didn't move. She didn't slap the girl. She didn't scream. She didn't throw her wine glass, though she wanted to. She laughed, a crisp, sharp sound, a little too loud. A little too clear. "Don't worry, dear," Bessie said, lifting her glass. "Everything will work out just fine." Lilia froze for half a second. That wasn't the reaction she expected. She wanted a scene. She wanted chaos. She wanted power. But Bessie had something else in mind. She had clarity. Because in that moment, one thing became absolutely certain in Bessie's mind. If you come for my family, Lilia, you'd better pray I don't come back stronger. Bessie laughed. Not because it was funny, not because she wasn't hurt, but because the pain was so sharp, so sudden, so raw, that her body didn't know what else to do. Lilia expected tears. She expected a gasp, a slap, a shattered glass. She expected drama. What she got was silence, wrapped in a smile. "Don't worry, dear," Bessie had said, lifting her glass. And Lilia blinked, just once, surprised. That laugh, it wasn't joy. It wasn't madness. It was armor. The sound rang out in the dining room like a crystal bell slicing through the warmth, turning heads. Cedric glanced up from his plate, finally, but quickly looked back down. Judd raised his glass oblivious to the current storm that had just thundered through his mother's chest. "To new beginnings," he beamed. "To growing families," Lilia added sweetly, with venom behind her teeth. And Bessie, she just smiled, nodded, clinked glasses, but inside, she wasn't sitting at that table anymore. Inside, she was burning. The laugh was just the lid to a pressure cooker. Because in that moment, she realized two things. First, her husband had betrayed her, or at the very least, allowed betrayal to unfold under his roof. Second, Lilia didn't come to destroy Bessie. She came to replace her. I see what you're doing, Bessie thought. You want my family, my son, my name, my home. But no one takes those things from Bessie Holloway and walks away smiling. No one. And so she laughed. And beneath that laugh, she began planning. Not revenge, not scandal, not some soap opera scene with hair pulling and tears. No, she was going to find the truth, because the truth is always louder than the lie. And when the moment came, she would serve it cold, on her best china, at her table, with a smile. The morning after the dinner, the silence in the kitchen felt colder than the tile beneath Bessie's bare feet. Cedric sat at the breakfast table, his silver hair neatly combed, his reading glasses perched on the edge of his nose. The newspaper rustled as he turned the page, carefully avoiding her gaze. He hadn't said anything about the dinner the night before. Not a word. Not even a passing comment about Lilia's announcement. As if nothing had happened. "Sleep well," he mumbled without looking up. "Fine," Bessie lied. And that was it. That was how 43 years of marriage looked the morning after your husband's mistress claimed to be carrying his child. No confession, no denial. Just toast and eggs. But now Bessie was watching. Every glance, every pause, every step. Cedric wasn't just quiet, he was hiding. And Lilia, she had become a permanent shadow in their lives. She began dropping by more frequently, always when Judd was at work. "I just wanted to learn your apple pie recipe," she'd say, or "Cedric's teaching me how to prune roses." But Bessie wasn't stupid. Lilia didn't care about apple pie. She didn't care about roses. She cared about presence, about territory, about control. She would laugh a little too loudly at Cedric's jokes, brush invisible lint off his shoulder, stand a little too close when handing him a cup of tea. Bessie watched it all. And the worst part? Cedric let her. He didn't pull away. Didn't correct her. He just absorbed the attention, quietly, guilt-ridden, or worse, flattered. One afternoon, Bessie caught a glimpse through the kitchen window, Cedric and Lilia standing close together by the rose bushes. Her hand rested lightly on his forearm. He was talking. She was smiling. He blushed. Bessie's heart didn't break. Not anymore. It hardened. "If you two think I'm not watching," she thought, "then you've forgotten who taught Judd to read people in the first place." The kitchen used to be Bessie's favorite place. It was where Judd took his first steps, where Cedric danced with her barefoot on linoleum after their 10th anniversary, where birthday cakes rose in the oven and Thanksgiving turkeys browned to perfection. It was the heart of the Holloway home. But now it was cold and quiet, a place where truth went to die. Each morning she moved through the kitchen like a ghost in her own house, pouring coffee, slicing toast, placing the sugar bowl in its usual spot, all while Cedric sat just 5 feet away, yet feeling like he was on another planet. They spoke, but only with words, never with their eyes, never with their hearts. "Eggs?" she asked one morning. "Scrambled, please." That was all. He didn't say thank you, he didn't ask how she slept, he just ate, and she watched him closely. The way his eyes lingered on the table, the way his hands trembled just slightly when he buttered his toast, the way he reached for his coffee before she'd even sat down. It was all wrong. Subtle, but wrong. Bessie could feel it in her bones. Cedric was hiding something. But worse than that, he was treating her like a stranger, like someone he couldn't look in the eye anymore. And in marriage, that was the deepest betrayal of all. Not the secrets, not even the sins, but the silence. Because silence, when it came from someone who once knew your heartbeat, echoed louder than any lie ever could. It happened on a Tuesday, mid-morning. The house was quiet, too quiet. Bessie had just finished loading the dishwasher when she saw movement through the sheer kitchen curtains out in the back garden. By the rose trellis Cedric tended like a sacred altar. There stood Lilia. And Marcus the gardener, 30-something, reserved, quiet. The kind of man who always took his shoes off before entering, even when no one asked. He never spoke unless spoken to, and he handled roses like they were sleeping children. But that morning he looked different, tense, uncomfortable, like he didn't want to be there. Bessie moved closer to the window, careful not to disturb the curtains. Lilia was speaking to him in hushed tones. She reached into her purse and pulled something out, a white envelope, thick. Marcus looked down at it, then at her. He shook his head. She said something else. Her hand lifted slightly insistently. The envelope moved toward him again. He hesitated, looked over his shoulder, then took it, just like that. He slid it quickly into the pocket of his work jacket, eyes darting around like a boy caught stealing. Bessie's breath caught in her throat. Her pulse thudded in her ears. What are you paying him for? Lilia Marcus turned away and busied himself with the hedge clippers. But Bessie saw it, the stiffness in his shoulders, the guilt in his step. And in that moment, something shifted inside her. Pain turned into suspicion, suspicion into focus. Bessie wasn't just a betrayed wife anymore. She was something far more dangerous. She was a woman who knew to watch, and she was watching. It had been years since Bessie stepped foot into Judd's old bedroom. She used to call it his cave, a space filled with guitar picks, baseball trophies, and posters of bands he no longer listened to. But when he moved out, she'd tidied it up, folded his shirts one last time, and closed the door gently, like sealing a memory inside a glass jar. Now, she opened it like a detective entering a crime scene. The air was still. Dust floated like ghosts in the sunbeams streaming through the window. The bed was made. The shelves were neat. Too neat. Lilia had been staying here during her visits, claiming she liked the view of the garden. But something told Bessie that wasn't the only reason. She moved quickly, efficiently. She wasn't searching like a mother. She was searching like a woman who had seen the first crack in a dam and knew the flood was coming. Top drawer, socks, and cologne. Nothing strange. Second drawer, miscellaneous papers, receipts, a birthday card she'd written him 2 years ago. Third drawer, bingo. Tucked underneath a pile of neatly folded sweaters was a slim manila folder. She pulled it out, sat on the edge of the bed, and opened it slowly. Inside were statements, bank records, loan applications, credit card approvals, all in Judd's name. And the numbers, $15,000, $22,000, $30,000, withdrawals in cash, high-interest loans from sketchy lenders, emergency funds completely drained. Her hands began to tremble. "My Judd," she whispered, voice cracking. "What did you get yourself into?" The documents told a story far darker than she ever imagined. This wasn't about a fling. This wasn't even about betrayal anymore. It was about debt. And someone was using it to pull her family apart. It was drizzling. That kind of soft, persistent rain that blurred the air and made everything feel heavier than it was. The kind that made secrets harder to hold. Bessie stood by the back door, staring out across the yard. Cedric was out there, shoulders hunched, facing the rose bushes like they were going to answer for him. Lilia stood a few feet away, arms crossed, her mouth drawn tight. And Marcus, off to the side, shifting from foot to foot like he wanted to disappear into the hedge. Bessie stepped outside. The screen door creaked. All 3 heads turned toward her. No one said a word, not at first. She walked slowly down the stone path, her cardigan already damp from the mist. Her heart pounded, but her steps were steady. She stopped just short of them, looked at each face. Cedric couldn't meet her eyes. Lilia smirked, always the actress, always ready for her cue. And Marcus looked heartbroken. "Tell her, Cedric." Marcus's voice was soft, but it hit like thunder. Cedric flinched. She deserves to know, all of it. The silence that followed was deafening. Cedric finally looked up. His blue eyes, once full of calm, were now fogged with guilt. "Bess." I never meant for you to find out like this. Find out what? Her voice didn't shake. It sliced. That you betrayed me, that you got her pregnant, that you lied to your own son. Lilia's smirk widened, like she was watching a play she had written herself. Oh, please, she cut in, voice dripping honey and acid. He's not the villain here. He's just a man who made a few complicated choices. Shut up, Lilia, Marcus snapped. His voice, usually quiet and respectful, now cracked with rage. You've twisted all of this. You used me. You used Cedric. You used everyone. Lilia turned to him, eyes blazing. You knew the deal, Marcus. You took the money. And I regret it every damn day, he shouted, especially when I see how Judd's being destroyed just to protect your lies. Bessie's world swayed. She looked at Cedric again. Tell me the truth, all of it. And Cedric, finally, did. Cedric took a breath that rattled in his chest. The rain clung to his face like tears he didn't know how to shed. I pretended to be the father. To protect Judd. The words fell like stones. Heavy. Final. Bessie blinked, trying to process. You lied to me. Lied to Judd? Lied to yourself. Cedric looked down, ashamed. He was drowning, Bess. The debt, the threats. He needed time to clean it up. So your solution, she spat, was to burn your marriage to buy him a few quiet weeks. Before Cedric could answer, Marcus stepped forward, his face pale, jaw tight. It's not Cedric's baby. It's mine. Silence, the kind that follows an explosion. Lilia didn't flinch. She smiled. That smile, the kind that drips with victory and venom all at once. What now, Bessie? Her voice curled around the question like smoke. You gonna kick me out? Expose me? Break poor Judd's heart? She stepped closer. You're not that cruel. You never were. That's why you lose. Always. But Bessie wasn't trembling anymore. She looked at Marcus. How long has she been blackmailing you? Marcus nodded, jaw clenched. Since the night I walked her home drunk. One mistake. She used it ever since. And the money? Mostly to keep Judd afloat. She dangled both of us like puppets. Bessie turned to Lilia. So this whole time, you were never afraid. Because you thought you held every card. I do, Lilia sneered. You did, Bessie corrected, voice calm and cutting. And with that, Bessie reached into her coat pocket. She held up a sealed envelope. Crisp, official. A paternity test. Lilia's face froze. It was just a piece of paper, folded, silent, unassuming, but it held the kind of truth that could split a family like an earthquake. Bessie unfolded it slowly, the edges still crisp from the lab. Her eyes scanned the lines, not once, not twice, but 3 times. Alleged father, Judson M. Clark. Probability of paternity, 0%. Her throat tightened. Biological father, Marcus A. Rayner. Probability of paternity, 99.99%. The silence in the room roared louder than any scream. She looked up. Cedric's mouth parted, but no sound came. Judd, who had just entered, froze in the doorway, his face slack. Lilia didn't blink. Instead, she tilted her head and smiled. Told you I had insurance. Her voice silk, smug, poisonous. Marcus's face went pale. You kept it? He asked, horrified. Of course, Lilia said, laughing softly. You don't play this game without leverage. Bessie stood up, slowly. Her voice, when it came, was steady, measured. You used this baby, your own child, as a weapon? It's not about the baby, Lilia replied. It's about power. And who's smart enough to use it? Bessie shook her head, eyes burning. Not power, cowardice, and you built your little throne on lies." She handed the test to Judd, who stared at it like it was acid, and when his knees buckled, it was Cedric who caught him. No shouting, no slamming doors, no sobbing into pillows. Bessie didn't scream. She baked. The scent of cinnamon and warm apples filled the house. She ironed the old lace tablecloth, set out the fine silverware, lit every candle one by one, because this dinner wasn't just a meal, it was a message. She moved with calm precision like a surgeon preparing for a quiet operation. "They think I'll fall apart," she whispered, smoothing the cloth. "But I've been breaking in silence for years. Now it's their turn to crumble." In the background, Cedric watched. He didn't dare speak, because for the first time in 43 years, he wasn't sure who Bessie had become. Not soft, not fragile, but something sharper, stronger. A woman who had once believed in family dinners, now setting the table for war. The china was spotless. The roast was perfect crisp on the outside, juicy within. Candles flickered, casting soft shadows on the walls. Laughter echoed faintly, thin, cautious. Cedric poured the wine. Judd reached for the bread. Lilia adjusted her napkin, smiling too much, too wide. But Bessie didn't smile. She didn't eat. She didn't speak. She watched. Eyes fixed not on her husband, not on her son, on Lilia. Every breath Bessie took was measured, controlled, because tonight wasn't about the food. It wasn't about pretending anymore. It was about timing. And when the plates were nearly cleared, when Judd's glass was half full and Lilia reached for her fork, Bessie reached under the placemat and laid a folded envelope gently in the center of the table. No words, just that one quiet action. The room went still. Lilia froze. Her fingers hovered in midair. Cedric stared at the envelope like it might explode. Judd blinked confused. Bessie finally spoke. "I thought this belonged to all of us now." And just like that, the air thickened, because truth had finally taken a seat at the table. Bessie placed the paper in the center of the table, not with anger, not with drama, but with the calm of a woman who had waited too long and knew exactly what she was doing. "Lilia," she said gently, "you dropped this." Judd reached across the table, unfolding the paper with trembling hands. His eyes moved quickly back and forth. Then he froze. "Marcus Santos." His voice cracked like glass. "Who the hell is Marcus Santos?" Lilia's smile didn't vanish, but it twitched. Cedric cleared his throat. His voice was gravel. "I never touched her, son. I let her say it was mine because I thought it would protect you." "Protect me?" Judd slammed his fist on the table. "You let me believe I was going to be a father. You let her spit in Mom's face." Bessie didn't flinch. She kept her eyes on Lilia, who now looked less composed, her breathing shallow, her fingers trembling under the table. "That's not true," Lilia snapped. "He wanted it." Cedric shook his head, slow, heavy. "No, I wanted to save my boy from the shame, from the debt collectors. I was stupid, but I never touched you." Judd stood up, chair screeching behind him. "I was gonna name him after Grandpa," he said, voice raw. "He's not yours," Bessie said softly. Lilia's mask cracked, finally. Her voice dropped. I just needed options. I didn't know what to do." Bessie leaned in, her voice steel. "You had choices, but you chose lies." Silence. A silence loud enough to ring in everyone's ears. She expected yelling. She expected slamming doors. She expected Bessie to scream, to demand, to punish. But instead, Bessie handed her an envelope. Inside, a one-way bus ticket, a folded note, and a phone number scribbled in tidy handwriting. "Marcus's sister, Bessie said. "She lives in Albuquerque. She'll take you in. Start over. For the child." Lilia's lips parted. No witty comebacks, no venom, just silence. "You're not being punished," Bessie continued, her voice calm. "You're being removed from this family, from this house, from the chance to keep poisoning it." Lilia stared at the envelope, then at Cedric, then at Judd. Judd didn't say a word. Cedric wouldn't look at her. And so, for the first time, Lilia understood. She hadn't won. She had simply run out of rope. As she stood, the chair didn't scrape. No tears, no apology, just footsteps, and the faintest sound of something ending. Judd checked into therapy, voluntarily, quietly, no fanfare, no dramatics. Each week he showed up, trembling at first, then standing straighter. Then smiling just slightly when he spoke about the baby that never was. "I don't hate her," he once told the counselor, "but I hate who I was when I let it all happen." Cedric and Bessie spent more time on the porch. No more silence between them. Sometimes they said nothing at all, but their hands found each other. The garden bloomed again. Not because of the soil, but because Bessie had finally let the storm pass and tended it with peace. One afternoon, a letter arrived. From Phoenix. Brown paper, blue ink, slanted handwriting. Inside was one sentence. "His name is David. Thank you." No return address, no signature. Bessie folded the paper, held it to her chest, and whispered, "That's enough." Sometimes the strongest revenge isn't rage, it's clarity. Bessie didn't destroy anyone. She uncovered the truth, reclaimed her voice, and chose peace over poison. In life, you don't always need to shout to be powerful. You just need to know who you are and what you refuse to tolerate. Let this story remind you, boundaries can be silent, healing can be loud, and dignity, that's the legacy we leave behind. If this story moved you, if it made you feel seen, understood, or just gave you goosebumps, subscribe for more powerful stories like this. And don't forget to hit that bell so you never miss a moment where truth meets courage, because sometimes one story can change the way we see ourselves.